Yes, I am an attorney whose dad is currently on trial for murder. I feel like people in the legal field, like my peers, would judge me for being associated, I guess, to that type of person. Um, and I've had instances where my dad's lifestyle has affected my legal career and put me in a very unfortunate and awkward position. But ultimately, I do understand that, my dad's actions are not my actions. And so, it's not really much I can do about that but continue to live my life and support him, you know, from a distance. And I know some people are probably thinking, like, you're a lawyer. What do you mean from a distance? You don't want to help your dad? But me and my dad do not have the best relationship. We have not had the best relationship all of my life. And I guess for you guys to fully understand this situation, I have to take you back and kind of explain the journey and the relationship with my father and his legal predicament and how it has affected me. Okay, so for reference, I'm 28 years old, okay? And my father has really never been in my life. I'm the youngest of five kids, and I'm the only one who has the father that I have. And so my mom met him randomly, I think, like at a barbershop. My mom has had short hair all her life, and my dad is a barber, so there you go. And, they did the do whatever I was produced, but my father was not a stable or stand up guy from what I know. It was no way to know that, like at the beginning when my mom started dating him or dealing with him, but that became very evident very clearly. I have an older sister by my dad, and then there's also four, at least four kids after me that I know of that I have never met. But I have met my older sister a few times. So my dad has a habit of having multiple kids that he doesn't really take care of or that he's not really present in their life. But nonetheless, my dad is not really around that much. He pops in and out, calls here and there, visits here and there as a kid. And so by like the age of 8, I really don't really care for him, and I have this disdain for him that I've come upon on my own, not because my mom criticizing him or whatever. My mom always made it very clear, I don't have to talk down on him, I don't have to speak bad on him, I don't have to feed you this narrative because you will develop that on your own as you get older. But I actually developed it very young. There was a couple times where my dad came around and I think we may have had a good time. I think I was like maybe 5 or 6. I think he showed up to my 6th or 7th birthday. Actually, no, he missed the birthday party but showed up like a day or two late and bought me some gifts. And at that point I kind of feel like maybe he was doing the best that he could. I don't know. And so I have maybe 2 early memories of him. No, 3. One, when I was 8, I went with him to visit one of my aunts, and they got drunk, and he put his hands on a woman, and was kind of fighting her while me and her kids were in the, back of the car. And I think that visit, I got left at my auntie's house, and I don't know where my dad went. And I think my mom's side of the family or something had to come pick me up. My dad has a long criminal rap sheet and a history of being violent with women, which also contributes to my disdain for him. But we'll get to his criminal history in a little bit. And so I have about 3 early memories of him around between the age of 5 and 8. And then the next time I see him, that same aunt passed away. I have multiple aunts, but that aunt passed away, and I saw him at like her memorial when I was 13. And at 13 years old, that is the last time that I saw my dad. And mind you, I'm 28, and I'm going on 29. I'll be 29 this month. So last time I see my dad, I'm 13, but I remember throughout high school, my mom calling him. No, actually, why? I remember like in the early stages of being 8 or 9 or whatever, and my dad calling at night because there was a time difference. Because throughout my whole entire life, he's pretty much lived in another state. I don't think he's lived in Michigan since I was a very tiny baby. But he's calling my mom to speak to me, and I'm faking sleep. Like, I don't really want to talk to him. By the time I see him at the age of 18, I'm kind of over him. I don't care for him. He's drinking. He's drunk at this memorial. Not really pleasant to be around. It's kind of awkward. I'm just hanging around my aunts and my cousins. Not really paying him any mind. 13 is the last time I see him. But throughout the time of high school, my mom is calling him, kind of asking him for help. I'm getting older. I'm kind of expensive. Every now and then he sends $50, $48, because he probably had to pay $2 or so to send him order. He's sending a couple of dollars here and there, like maybe $50 2 to 3 times a year to help my mom, and even that is a hassle to get. I'm calling him. You know, I thought you was gonna send this money. He's not answering. His phone is off. Whatever. And that's pretty much the gist of our relationship throughout my entire high school years, my teenage years. Him not being physically present, barely helping financially, you know, nothing there emotionally. When it was time for me to graduate high school, he was not at graduations, not at prom. He was supposed to help with my senior pictures and my senior prom costs. I don't think he sent anything. If he did, it was probably $50. So it's just like, I don't have this great relationship or this great image of my dad to begin with. And at this point, I go off to college. I believe I was a sophomore in college. I think I was like 18 or 19 at the time. And my dad calls and asked me to get an apartment in his name. And I'm like, sir, I don't have no credit. I don't have nothing. He was a felon at this point because he has, you know, domestic violence charges, and drug charges, whether it be possession for use or selling. I've never confirmed that. I do have an idea that my dad is a drug user. I get that impression. Well, I know at this point he's a drug user, but back at the time where I was in college, I had that impression, and I looked up his criminal rap sheet, and it's, you know, pretty long with criminal charges and things like that. And so, yeah. He asked me to get this apartment. I'm like, sorry, Dad, I can't do it. I'm a college student. I'm working part-time. I live on campus. I don't even have an apartment. And also, at this point, my dad is not really to be trusted or whatever. So it's like, I'm not putting no apartment in my name for you. You don't really have, you know, he's a barber, but you ain't never really sent me no money. You don't have no money, no stable money. You usually live off some woman, with some woman, use them, abuse them, whatever. So why do I mess up my credit before it even gets started? No, I'm not putting no apartment in your name. So throughout like 1920, and I think maybe part of 21, he calls me every now and then. Usually he's asking for some type of favor, some type of assistance. It's never to help me out as a college student. It's never to give me anything. Sometimes I think it may have been to just check on me, but it's still not like nothing stable. And at this point, like I said, I really didn't care for him. But the last straw, I cut off my dad, I think at the age of 21. I think it was at the age of 21. I know it was the year of 2017, because he basically called me and tried to get me to help scam somebody without outrightly saying that. And he was trying to scam someone and trying to get my assistance. He didn't ask for help with the scam, but I knew that my help would contribute to a scam, and so that really pissed me off. And so after that, I cut him off, because I just felt like, you need to stop living the life that you're living at, like, you know, I think he was 50 at this point, or yeah, he was 50. I'm like, you need to stop living this life that you're living. But you know, your crime and all the wrongdoings that you do, the least you could do, you know, is not include your kids in it. You know, that's just how I feel. And so that was my last straw. You know, I was an adult. I was 21, and I was just like, I don't really have to deal with this. I don't really have to talk to you. You don't contribute to anything to me mentally, emotionally, physically, financially. If anything, I kind of stress and worry, and I'm concerned about you. And I'm a college student. I'm trying to get my life together. I don't really have time to be concerned about your doing. So at the age of 21, I cut my dad off. I blocked his number. Eventually, when I get a new number, he does not get that number. I communicate with my aunts, with my sibling, with my grandmother, and it's like, you know, I love my dad, but it's from a distance. He cannot have my number. Do not give him my number. And so that just became our relationship at that point. Like I said, my dad lived out of state all the time, so eventually he lived in Houston. Eventually I moved to Houston. I know my dad is in Houston for law school, and we're in the same state. And yeah, somehow it doesn't make the relationship even better with us being in the same state. But no surprise there, because my dad just happens to be full of disappointment, and that's just the truth. But yeah, so I'm in Houston for law school, starting my journey, and my dad ends up having a stroke within like a week of me being here. And my aunts are like, can you help your dad with this? Can you help your dad with that? I have no car, I have no money. I'm a broke ass, struggling and frustrated, scared ass college student with no family here other than my dad, unbeknownst to me. But nobody that I'm close with, or I just came here on my own basically, and so there was nothing I could do about him having a stroke. And once my dad realized I was in Houston, he continued to try to reach out to me and ask, my grandma for my contact information. But I just wasn't going for that. I stood strong with that. Fast forward later, I want to say 4 years later. 4 years later, and the police call my sister, and they asked, about my dad or whatever, and I don't really think she was helpful. She didn't really know what was going on. Mind you, my sister is in Michigan, and this is the Houston police calling my sister, and so she panicked. She called my grandmother, like, the police is calling me, blah blah blah. And so my grandmother calls me, and at the time, I am now a licensed attorney, and so it's kind of normal for my family to call me with anything police, political, legal, or whatever the case, at least at this point. And so my grandmother called me. I'm like, okay, let me see what I can figure out. And so I was previously a assistant district attorney in Harris County, and it was the Houston police that called my sister. And so I know there's a protocol, and like I know that there are certain things that can let you know if it's really a police officer, because I worked with police officers before on my criminal cases as a DA. They were my witness several times. So I reached out to the officer, and I'm like, because instantly I'm thinking this is a scam, because my dad has been known to scam. He has been known to include his children in scams. And so when they call about my dad, I'm thinking like it's a scam. But I think my grandmother was more so worried about his well-being, because he was not answering his phone. But the police had his phone, and so that's why he wasn't answering his phone. But I'm thinking it's a scam. His friends trying to get money are gonna say like, we have your daddy bail money or something. I don't even know what I thought, but like I immediately thought the worst, because I don't think highly of my dad, unfortunately, at this point. And so I'm thinking it's really not a police officer. Like I'm thinking my dad has something to do with him reaching out to my sisters, because it was just kind of weird. They called my sister and was like, is your dad so and so? And I don't think she denied or confirmed, because she didn't know what the hell was going on. And so I'm like, if somebody's calling you asking you is so and so your daddy, like I don't know, that just seemed weird to me. Okay, I'm not considering a murder at this time. And so I reached out to the police officer, and I said, you reached out to my family regarding my dad, like, is everything okay? Because I'm trying to make sure it's not a scam, or that he's not dead. And so I'm like, can you provide me like with your badge number or whatever I asked for, because I know that they have this specific number that identifies them, because I worked with police officers. I was trying to make sure it was a legitimate officer before I provided them any information, to figure out what exactly was going on with my dad. And if they couldn't provide that, then I was like, oh, it's a scam. He probably is trying to scam my sister. And so he never provided, he never responded. And so I kind of panicked, because even if it was a scam, I'm like, they probably would have tried to find a way to get around it. And if it was an officer, they would have given me the number that I was asking for, because I let them know that I was an attorney or whatever the case. And so I had somebody that still worked at the DA's office, and I asked them, hey, can you look up my dad? I know he had criminal cases. with Harris County, and because he was defended in the system for multiple cases, I knew that if he had passed away, that it would say deceased, which it didn't. And that's what I wanted to verify, just to let my grandma know, hey, I don't know what he got going on or what he wrapped up in. Maybe it's a scam, but I know he not dead because it's not showing deceased. So at that point, when it didn't show deceased and the police didn't text me back, I was like, oh, my dad is scamming or something. That's him and his friends or whatever. He probably trying to get some money for drugs or something like that. I don't know, because my sister never cooperated. Had she confirmed whether or not that was her dad or answered the police officer's questions, we would have found out a lot quicker that his phone was found on the murder scene and that they were looking for him. So, but anyway, nonetheless, I've reached out to this cop now, and so I don't know, they thought I was trying to intimidate an officer or get answers for my dad or whatever, because he's a suspect, but they couldn't find him, whatever the case. And so they, try to charge me or bring me in or infer that I was trying to help my dad. And I had a friend who was looking up information, also trying to help him, as if we were just this one big conspiracy. I don't know exactly what they thought, but I feel like they thought that I was trying to intimidate the officer when I texted him. And so they called me in for questioning. And pretty much was like, why did you text this officer, and why were y'all looking up, your dad in the system? And I was like, well, somebody reached out to my family randomly. We don't know why. I didn't have any information about it. My grandmother was worried about my dad. I wanted to see what was going on, if it was really my dad behind some type of scam, because he's known to scam, and he's a known drug user. So usually I'm skeptical with anything that involves my dad. But also my grandmother was worried, so I wanted to give her peace of mind and let her know, hey, it's not like my dad has been killed. And, that's why the police is reaching out to his next of kin to identify him or something like that. And so once they understood I hadn't been in contact with my dad in years, and I had legitimate phone records and text messages between my mom and my sister, with genuine concern about the situation, trying to see what was going on, they kind of wrapped that up and no charges were pressed or no further investigation. But I was in such a panic because I was a baby attorney and had just got licensed a couple months prior, and I was like, damn, I'm not even on good terms with my dad. But had they tried to put this case together like I was trying to do something unethical or illegal or some type of conspiracy or whatever the case, or intimidate this officer, they could have pressed charges. I could have lost my license, or I could have just been embarrassed in front of all my peers if this was a case that I actually had to fight, if the charges would have went through or something would have came of it. And at that point, I was like, okay, I gotta wash my hands with my dad, period, because this is getting just too close to comfort, and I cannot ruin my life or just mess up my mental, because I was distraught while this investigation or whatever the case was going on. I cannot, I just can't afford any of this right now, especially for somebody who has never done anything for me. So to work this hard, to be the opposite of what he is, and the opposite of the and not to be a product of my environment and my upbringing, I've worked so hard to be something different, and I could have wasted everything and threw everything away because of him, in a way. And so I was like, I'm washing my hands with whatever he be having going on, whatever is involving my dad. Do not call me about it. I don't want to hear about it. Don't call me, don't text me, unless y'all know for a fact something has happened to him, or there's a funeral or something that I need to attend. That's just kind of where I was. I was so frustrated about it. I'm like, if he not dead, do not call me. So eventually they end up getting in touch with my dad. This whole criminal case kind of just got something in my nose. This whole criminal case just kind of was over and done with. I'm like, maybe they wanted to ask him some questions about something or whatever the case. I don't know. Once they cleared me and I almost got caught up on it was out of my mind. It was out of my head. I didn't hear anything about it. I never talked to my dad because I don't talk to him. Still have not talked to him this day. And I thought everything was fine. I knew at some point he was in Michigan visiting my grandmother, visiting my family, or whatever the case. But like I said, I didn't think anything of it. Definitely not that he would be charged with murder, but essentially that's what came of it. But yeah, so he's in Michigan. At the top of 2024, January 2024, I go home to visit my grandmother for her birthday. Who is she battles cancer. She's sickly, so I wanted to make sure, that I went to her birthday and support her, especially after all this happened. I felt like she didn't want to reach out to me or contact me because she felt like, she had put me at risk, and I was upset about that. But, that's a that's another story. So, I wanted to go surprise her and travel for her birthday and see her. And I remember somebody asking where my dad was. I don't know, I think they asked one of my aunts, and they're like, he's in jail. And I'm like, okay, typical. The man's always in jail. And so I guess he went to jail for something in Michigan. And at some point in Houston in the year of 2024, he became an official suspect, or he was officially charged, but he was in Michigan in jail for something else. And so when he served his time in Michigan for whatever unknown crime, I never know with him, he was extradited to Houston and charged for murder. I never knew. Nobody told me because, of this big explosion that happened. When I said don't call me about my dad, they literally did not call me about my dad. So I had not seen any of the news articles for about 6 or 7 months after he was charged. Randomly, right before Christmas, my sister reached out and was like, I don't want to bother you with this, but dad is asking if you can represent him. So I'm like, what? So I Google his name. Instantly, it pops up that my dad has officially been charged with a murder. And maintains his innocence. He has a public defender who he does not trust. A lot of people feel like public defenders don't really care about them, or they're in cahoots with the prosecutors. I know public defenders who do not do that. As a prosecutor, there was never any public defender that was in cahoots with me or against their client. There might be people out there, but generally I don't feel like most public defenders are going to risk their license. But my dad doesn't trust any part of the criminal justice system, I guess, because he's been in and out of jail all his life, literally all his life, and has dozens and dozens of charges. And so his case was really weird because he was in Michigan when he was actually charged. So the hearings and stuff were happening in Houston, but he wasn't there yet. So everything kept getting reset. And so by the time he actually got to Houston, I think he asked for a speedy trial, and he had like a trial date that was like 3 or 4 months after him finally being in Houston custody. And so that's not really a lot of time to develop a case or whatever the case. He had no rapport with the public defender or anything like that. And so I think his first hearing at the end of November of 2024, the public defender may have like reset the case or something, because I've looked it up and I'm trying to follow along, like when he's extradited and when his cases are getting reset. But it's kind of hard to actually know what's going on because I don't communicate with my dad. Nonetheless, I read the crime that he's accused of, and I'm like, this is kind of crazy that this is a predicament my dad is in. He's 60 or about to be 60. So you shouldn't even be accused of these type of crimes. You shouldn't even be anywhere near these environments. These should not even be your peers. Like, you should be somewhere chilling, like just trying to get your life together, reconnecting with your kids, your younger ones who are not adults. And so I was just like, I hope he didn't do this. I hope he doesn't have to spend the rest of his life in jail, because he is a habitual offender. He has violent offenses that he's been convicted of before. And so I know Texas doesn't play. And I'm just like, I hope that that doesn't happen. And then I was like, that if he is convicted, because of what happened previously, I feel like people at the DA's office know, my peers know that's my dad, and it's a little embarrassing. I know I shouldn't be embarrassed about it because it's not me. And doctors, lawyers, and everybody else have people in their family that makes mistakes. But I hope he's found innocent, and I hope he gets his life together if he ever does get to see the light of day. I am currently debating if I want to show up to his hearings and show up to his trials. Like I said, I don't communicate with him, and I don't want to give him false hope that I will be there with him in this journey, because I still feel like I'm not ready to do that. I also don't know if I want to put myself in that predicament to attach myself to him in the legal world, in this courtroom. My dad is not the most sound mind that there is. So I don't even know how he would react in the courtroom, but at the same time, I don't even know if he would recognize me because I haven't seen him in 15 years. And so it's just a lot of emotions. I'm really scared for him. I feel like it's really unfortunate. It's really an emotional tug because I feel like that's still my father at the end of the day, and I kind of owe him support. But at the same time, I feel like I don't owe him anything because he haven't did anything for me. And it's like after what happened when I tried to be helpful or be supportive or investigate, when my career and my well-being and my freedom was on the line, I kind of swore off getting involved. And so I still don't really want to get involved. But now that I know the severity of the situation, I feel like with my legal background, I should be helpful somewhat. And so it's really this tug of war. Do I help him? Do I stay out of it? You know, I haven't talked to him in years, and I went on record to say I haven't talked to him in years, so it's like to pop up now would be odd, and it's just so many different things. But it's just like I am a lawyer. My dad is on trial for murder. Well, being charged with murder. So I feel like the normal thing is to help, but I don't know. I really don't know what to do, how to help, if I should help. I really don't want to show up and maybe find out some things that I don't want to know and see him in a light that I don't want to see him in because I already don't see him in the best light. I really don't want to not show up and be there, and then he is convicted and gone for the rest of his life, and I know there's something that I could have contributed. I don't know how my dad's side of the family will feel about that. I also don't know how I would feel about that, knowing that, you know, if he got convicted, he would probably more than likely never be free again because he's already 60, or, you know, he may die in prison. It's a lot of weird mixed emotions, and I really don't know how to process them. And you know, I'm trying not to look at the case from a legal position, but from a daughter. But at the same time, I've detached myself as his kid for so long. And so that is my current struggle. That is my current journey as a young black female attorney whose dad is charged with murder. He's currently incarcerated, and he's been incarcerated most of my life. And it has affected our relationship, and currently have us in between a rock and a hard place. And so I don't know, what do y'all think? Does my dad deserve a second chance, or should I just walk away and continue to live my life? Let me know in the comments.